Good. So welcome back for this afternoon session. I think we have an exciting round of cases here to discuss from many different angles. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Thomas Aigner, who will make a presentation about archives as keepers of big data of the past, new opportunities for society, economics, and research. Thomas.
So, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's always a big pleasure for me to come to your wonderful city. This means also to have a reason to come here, and it's really great to be here, and thank you very much. I feel something like a little bit alien among the speakers and among also the participants, because I'm a really traditional archivist coming from an archive, keeping records, keeping old books, breathing a lot of dust every day. But of course, my job is not just breathing dust, it's also about thinking what we could do with the archives in the future, and also in terms of digitization and in terms of the digital era. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself a little bit and the organization behind me. In my real life, I work as an archivist in St. Pölten, it's in Lower Austria. But I'm also the president of an international network organization. It's called Icarus. This means International Center for Archival Research. Basically, the first name was only ICAR, but then we thought we cannot leave it as like that, because it would be something like iCar, iPod, iPad, and we wanted to avoid that. And then we added the US at the end, and Icarus was born. So the name Icarus is not our program, because we don't want to end up like Icarus did. But maybe it's always good to be aware of the fact that if you fly too high, you might also end up not so good. Our network consists of about 180 institutions, almost all around the world. We have some members in the United States and Canada. We have also one member in Iraq, and most of our members are from all over Europe. And I'm really proud to say that this year we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of our Icarus network. And the wonderful thing is that everything started here in Prague, and also my two colleagues from the National Archives, Alena and Jitka, are among us. They are some kind of the founding mothers also of Icarus. And that's really a nice fact, beside that Prague is one of the most important cities for Icarus and its history. What are we doing? First of all, Icarus is a platform for institutions to cooperate. This means that we want to help our members to cooperate, to find partners for EU projects, or partners in terms of exchanging ideas or exchanging knowledge or expertise. And we also help our partners to implement projects very concretely. That's the difference of Icarus to international organizations like the ICA. The ICA, the International Council on Archives, works more on a level of strategical level. We try to realize really concrete projects. We try also to help our members with services. So we have a scan station that is sent to the archives, where very special scan services are offered, especially in terms of medieval charters. Medieval charters is something that you cannot trust really any company to do. And we also run digital infrastructures. This means portals and platforms in order to help our members to provide their historical data in a linked environment to the people and in an international context. Our main portals that we run are Monasterium. Sorry, it's okay, it was too slow. The first one, and the portal with that everything started, is Monasterium. The second one is a portal that provides church registers, and the third one is the so-called topothek. In detail, monasterium deals with medieval and early modern times parchments, charters. These are the most important sources of medieval history, and here you can get an impression of what I'm speaking about. So you really have those old parchments, and they date back into the early Middle Ages. For instance, from the Czech National Archives, we have almost all charters digitized and online on that platform. And I think the heart of the Czech National Archives, the archives of the Crown of the Kingdom of Bohemia, it's also digitized and available in the monasterium platform. The other platform we are running is the Matricula Platform. It aims at providing church registers. You know, many people are looking for their ancestors and for their family trees, and so it's really quite comfortable for them now, not having to go into the parish offices anymore and to start a quarrel with the priest about looking into the books. They can do it now in the internet. And we've talked today a lot of culture 3.0. This means involving the people into creating cultural content, in processing of cultural data. And the topothek is a system that aims at involving citizens in villages, in securing the archival heritage in the private households, but also to index it and also to publish it on the platform. So this means that in some village in the Czech Republic or in Austria, there is a topothek established, and the people there, the topothekers we call them, so they chase after the photos and the documents that are stored in some shoe boxes or under some rooftops or in cellars or somewhere. And you would never guess what private households keep, what treasures private households keep. So there is really a lot of material that is of high relevance, not just for the local historical identity of the people, but also really of a common scientific interest. And the topothek system works like that, so that each object is indexed in a very simple way, but those objects can also be tagged, they can be dated, and they can be also, a place can be defined, so that you can also find the objects on a map. So you can virtually walk through the village and see if walk to certain places and see how it looked like if there is a photo of that place. And until now, that system is running in about 220 villages all over Europe, and there are about 700 or 800 private persons involved, working voluntarily in securing and indexing the sources in the private households. And for me personally, the high relevance of that system lies in the fact that the sources that the people are publishing there would get lost if they wouldn't do it. Because private photos, you know, somebody dies or somebody moves from one place to the other, and the photos get lost. But with that system, we can secure it. I'm sorry, that is a little bit slow. So the topothek is something that aims at creating a platform for a collaboration between the institutions, in that case Icarus or the municipality, and society. And I think this is something that becomes more and more relevant, not only in museums and libraries or in the cultural sector in general, but also in the archival sector too. Because archives are not lonely islands. Yeah? That archives, historical information is a common good that should be also accessible and should be reused not only by researchers, scientists, but also by the public. Because in my there's something. Maybe I should get closer. And because of that, also we are talking about Creative Europe also a lot. We have a project, it's called Cooperation as Opportunity, and within that project that started in 2014 and it is about to end now in the next weeks, we tried to bring communities, private persons and institutions together in order to work in different fields. So this means people come into the archives and get acquainted with the archival processing methods. Documents are digitized for processing of the people. There are guided tours. There are didactic programs for children. We call it Adventures in Archives. In 2 weeks, we will have something, I think, never before in the archival world something like that happened. There will be an archival film festival. Yeah, it sounds strange maybe, but in Zagreb there will take place the big film festival of that program, and the films that were produced all over Europe by the 11 or 12 different archives will be presented there. The Topothek is also a part of the project, and yeah. So if you want to get more about the co-op project, please just go to that website. And now I would like to say some more general words. In my opinion, archives, and this means first of all public archives, are something like the memory of society. But as long as those archives are not digital and not 24/7 available for everybody, we cannot really speak of a memory of society. But now in the digital times, we really can reach that goal, that archives can be a real memory of society, because if the data is digital and can be reached at any time by anybody, it really can act as a memory. And that memory is something like another kind of big data simply. We are talking very much about big data. This means all the data that is produced in our contemporary times. But we have to be aware of the fact that there is also a big data of the past. And that with the simple difference that big data of the past is not digital yet, but is stored in paper, parchment, or whatever analog media. So this means we are still in some kind of digital stone age. So I think we have really achieved a lot, but it's still some kind of digital stone age. In order to overcome that digital stone age, we have to do something. In order to make that big data of the past really valuable and usable for, very interesting. Previously it worked. Okay, the video doesn't work. Let's go to the next. In order to make it usable, we have to do something in order to convert the paper digital of the big data of the past into a digital big data of the past. This means that we absolutely need new technologies. We need technological breakthroughs in terms of digitizing cultural objects. This means, first of all, now in my case, of books, parchments, and documents. We need
new scanning infrastructures, and we need, of course, the software dealing with the content. We need technologies that read the handwritten text automatically and also recognize what it's written in there and can link in an intelligent way the data, one data to the other. So this means also we need the artificial intelligence for that. And if we make it to create those technological breakthroughs, it will be possible to really digitize, to really convert all the archives around Europe or around the world into digital data. And then we really will have the big data of the past available with, I think, totally not predictable consequences for research, for tourism, for culture, for civil society, and so on. And you see down there an internet address. Currently there is a huge project application ongoing. It's the so-called Time Machine project that aims at doing all those things that I just mentioned. So we really do hope that within some years we will have enough funding in order to create those breakthroughs, in order to convert all the archives into digital. And some consequences that might happen when we make it to create that big data of the past. This means that the everyday life that is, for instance, in that book of the Naples people, so this is from the Banco di Napoli, from the archives. Maybe you've recognized it. Yeah, if we have it, so people out there on the street can use the historical big data at any time, and if they have questions like what kind of business had the company 50 years ago, this guy, he's on the way to an interview because he wants a job, and if he has the big data available, he can simply go into his mobile and can inform himself about the history of the company. Or this lady is a designer, so she needs inspiration for a new design, so she can leaf through the big data of the past and find inspiration in old designs or old artifacts for her work. Or this lady here, she's a tourist, she wants to know how the street looked like 100 years before, and she enters the time machine, and then she sees virtually what houses stood there and who were the inhabitants and what shops were there and so on. Or this lady, she's on the way to buy a house or an estate, and she wants to know what was in the house 60 years ago, or what happened there, and that could be useful for negotiating the price, of course. So you see historical data, those are just a few examples. Historical data is nothing for written books only. Historical data is as important as the current big data that we access every day in the internet. So, yeah, and maybe the time machine works like that, you are in Venice, for instance, yeah, and it does not work too, so the beamer has a problem with it, because I guess on the computer it works. No? Okay, but I think I'm at the end of my time. When you go into YouTube and you search for time machine or for Venice time machine, you can see all those videos, and then you can get a feeling about how traveling through time and space might look like in the next years. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Thomas, for a fabulous presentation that gives us a real sense of how the archive dimension of heritage is very much beyond repository of things. It's really about a knowledge system that can interface with our life in so many different dimensions. And so I think it's very inspiring because, as you said, there's basically everybody can find a connection with heritage, no matter what they do, no matter where they are. So it's very important in some sense to, let's say, to deconstruct this notion of heritage as something that is simply confined to certain stereotyped aspects of memory or identity, which are of course important, but they can be inscribed in a much more complex picture. So yeah, I think that this presentation really says it all in a very clear way. And now let's go to contemporary art. So Viviana Kekkia from Glasgow. And so let's see. Oh, sorry. For some reason, I was... No, we agreed a different... no. Ludovico from... Yeah, no. So first, Ludovico Solima from Naples. And it's, in some sense, in the middle between contemporary arts and heritage in this case, because it's really about a cutting-edge use of new media and technology on how to address heritage from a different angle. Ludovico, sorry.
Thank you. Again. No, it's okay. It's okay. There should be a presentation somewhere, and I need. Yeah. Thank you. Can I? Okay. It works.
Make one step back.
Okay. First of all, I would say many thanks to the organizers for their kind invitation. Very glad to participate in this conference, and very glad to be here in Prague again, because I've already been there. I work in the departments of economic in Naples, where I teach management of a cultural organization, and as you can see, my speech is about museums in a digital age, and in this new scenario, as Pierluigi said in the morning, visitors became crucial for the strategies of museums. So, in a perspective of audience development, it is necessary to experiment new communication tools and new languages. And so, after a brief theoretical introduction, I will speak about two experimental activities that has been recently carried out by the National Archaeological Museum of Naples, with I work since 3 years ago. Let's start from some figures that will represent the current digital age. Every 60 seconds, there are many hours of streaming on Netflix, 87,000, 29 million WhatsApp messages, 350,000 tweets, and so on. Many photos on Instagram, many pages on Wikipedia, and many searches are made on Google. And in this scenario, I think that the role of museums have to change. And I would try to explain how. Well, actually, in the first phase, museum focused their attention mainly on the permanent collection and on their conservation. Pierluigi spoke about patronage. That means a focus on the artworks. So, first step was museum work for artworks. Then, since the early years of this century, this focus has shifted to visitors, with a growing awareness of the existence of a plurality of audiences, each of them with its own need. So the second step is for visitors. And another one, the next one, is with visitors. Pierluigi spoke about the power of participation. In the last 10 years, a dialogue with visitors has been developed from museums, also thanks to the growing popularity of social media. But I would say that there is another step that is perhaps just beginning, which deals with the creation of cultural production. So, summarizing, I would imagine a sort of evolutionary path with the first steps that start for artworks, for visitors, with visitors, and with artworks. So in a sentence, I would say that it's necessary that functions and therefore the identity of museums can constantly evolve, overcoming the idea that all their activities has to be focused on the development of cultural activities, but that the creation of cultural products can be part of their function and part of their identity. In a few years ago, in 2014, the main, in Italian there has been a change. The former Ministry of Culture made a reform of the state of museums and give independence to the most important state museum in Italy. Among them, there's one in Naples. This is the Archaeological Museum of Naples, which decide to develop some activities. Just to present in few words, in few sentences, this museum, can be considered one of the most important archaeological museum in the world, and is among the most important museum in Naples and among the top 10 museums in Italy. And this year will attract more than 600,000 visitors. So it's growing up very rapidly in the last years. And its origin are very far away. The origin of the museum and the collection started with the activities of the King Charles of Bourbon in few years ago, I would say. And actually, the collection are based on three main themes: the Roman collection, the Egyptian one, and Bourbon, because there's a part of statue that was brought by the Bourbon family. And actually there are more than 250 artworks which are part of the collection and the museums, and that are displayed on a big surface. So, a few years ago, at the end of 2015, as a result of the reform that I mentioned, a new director has been appointed to the museum, Paolo Giuliedini, and one of his first projects that we carried out together was the elaboration of a strategic plan for the period of his contract. This is quite an unusual thing for the Italian museum, because no one has ever, until then, made a strategic plan. Anyway, in the strategic plan, this is the overall structure of the document, and within the strategic objectives that has been focused in the document, there is one that deals with audience development. So this is the general framework for a project very unusual that started in 2017, so 1 year ago. 1 year ago, the Archaeological Museum of Naples decided to produce a video game, and perhaps it's the first museum in the world that produce an app which is a video game. And one more time, I would like to refer to what Pierluigi said in the morning when speaking about video games. He considered it as a platform for delivery contents. Well, this is a case. The game is called Father and Son, and is a story of a son searching for the memories of his father, who has been working all his life in the Archaeological Museum of Naples. And the general structure of the game is this one. It's very easy, it's very simple. The player must get in touch with the 3 main thematic nuclei of museum collections in order to conclude the game. And here following some picture that maybe can give you an idea of the game, which take place in the city of Naples and within the museum. This is a famous square in Naples. This is you can see in the background the front of the museum. This is the museum garden, and this is the main character in front of a very important statue of the museum named Ercole Farnese. The game is built with time shift, which takes the player back in different periods. This is the Egyptian one, and this is Pompeii, of course, in the day of the destruction of the city by the eruption of the volcano, the Vesuvius volcano. And inside the museum there are panels that have been placed that refers to the section of the video game. We started with 2 languages, Italian and English, but considering the results of the game, we decided to increase the languages, so now it's in Russian, Chinese, Spanish, Portugal, and French, and maybe some more languages will come. Well, what happened exactly? There are, in brief, different effects that we consider from the side of the museum. The first one is about the reputation of museum. You can see some screenshot of a tweet, in this case, of the Italian Ministry of Culture, or the International Council of Museum that announced the video game. This is the first page of the most important Italian newspaper, and there were an interview with the former Minister of Culture, who, speaking about video games, speaks about this experience as a case history, something outstanding for Italy. Going very fast, a second effect can be connected with the increase of the visibility of museums. over 300 magazine tells about this video game. These some examples. Wired, the Italian version of Wired. This an economic, the most important economic newspaper in Italy. This is one of the most important artistic channel. And this is a Spanish newspaper, the digital version of El Mundo, which is the main Spanish newspaper. And there has been made some, even some television reports on the game. In terms of results, from a quantitative point of view, in 1 year and a half, the game has reached a very huge amount of downloads, more than 3 million, which is a number very, very high. And Italy is just a little part of this amount. Very high rating, more than 2.5 billion hours spent playing with the game, a lot of reviews made by the users, and over 400,000 views of the official trailer of the game on YouTube. And finally, the fourth aspect that we can consider is about creativity. All the game has been drawn with handmade digital approach, and for the playing of all the playing of the game is linked with some music that has been created for the game. Lastly, I would like to point out that there are several further activities connected with this experience. A second chapter, considering that the first one has been very important had these results, but even some tentatives, some efforts of contamination, that is a theatrical performance based on the video game stories, a web series, and even a literary transposition. So the story told in the video game will become a book. In a few minutes more, but I will finish. I'm almost finished my presentation. I would present another project that I really care about. Is a different project, always developed by the Archaeological Museum of Naples, and as you can read on the slide, is a project that deals with movies. Because has been realized 5 short movies in 5 different languages, inspired by 5 artworks of the museum collection. I don't know if I will be able to show you. There's a trailer, 1-minute trailer, that should start if I can go ahead with my presentation. Anymore? Yes, the video are very difficult to manage. Can you try to go ahead with the no. It's blocked. Everything is. It's frozen. With the keys, with the arrows. No, it's frozen. Wow. Okay, so. The next time I will show the trailer. In any case, no, it's interesting because it's a change of perspective. that this project suggests. We are used to speak about museum and collection with the point of view of curators. In this case, the point of view is the ones from visitors. So the relationship that each visitor can establish with an artwork, a statue, or a fresco, and what can happen. I was supposed to have a few more slides to conclude, but I would just say that in this digital world, the museums, they're changing their role, and they have to change their strategies, and they have to use different tools, new tools, in order to connect with different audiences. Okay, if you can click on the little circle on top left. Yes? Okay, thank you. And then let's try to go ahead. Okay, so that's what I was just saying. Museum has to use different tools, try to use different tools. And as for the digital side, they have to go beyond, far beyond a mere presence on the social platform like Facebook and so on, but they have tried to exploit this platform as a place in which they can listen and start a dialogue with users, which are not only the visitors of the museum, but even people who are not going to visit him, but just to establish a relationship, a digital relationship with it. And finally, I think that cultural production is another tool available for museums in order to get in touch with different audiences, improve the accessibility of museum, and use new languages which are maybe, I would say, the languages of contemporary life. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ludovico. I think, of course, there are several things that are striking about this case study. One of the most striking, in my view, is the extraordinary balance between the simplicity of the means that have been used and the exceptional results. That really means there's not need to invest a lot of money to obtain this kind of results, but it's really having a fresh perspective and really addressing the hidden expectations and desires of people, because also the really interesting thing here is the fact that you can address, for example, from an archaeological museum point of view, a very young constituency in ways that they recognize as their own. And so this is really the point. With respect to the traditional audience development programs, where it's very much about you should conform more to what we have already decided is the format of this experience, and we will develop some tools for persuading you to do so. Here is exactly the contrary. It's really tapping into the spontaneous energy and curiosity that people have to bring them closer to something that they couldn't think could be interesting for them. So this is really, I think, a very, very inspiring case study, and not incidentally, in Italy has really become one of the most important topics of conversations in the museum arena today, which is quite a result. Okay, and now so I switch to Viviana Checchia to go into the proper contemporary art scene. So Viviana, floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I get this one? Oh, yes. Where should I direct this to? There. Great. So First of all, thank you. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to everybody that helped me to reach this place today. And thank you to Sarah, who actually had to deal with all my strange requests. And thank you for the translator. I hope this is not going to be a hard job for you, because I'm Italian, I have a strange accent, and I tend to speak a little bit fast. So I would like to know from the audience, how many of you are familiar with this picture? Have you actually watched the movie? Great. So as you can see from the program, my presentation is called Where They Cannot Be in the Same Picture. And now, most probably, since I work as public engagement curator for a Center for Contemporary Arts, you are meant to believe that I'm going to prove that heritage and contemporary art can go together. It's an oxymoronic relationship. They are adverse. But actually, I want to prove the contrary. I want to say that, like in this movie, they cannot be in the same picture because they are the same person. The father can never appear in the same picture with the housekeeper that he became in order to be with his family, because they are the same person. It's just a question of makeup. So it's the same thing for us, for the Center for Contemporary Art in Glasgow. So I will start from the very beginning, and I'll tell you why it is that we are extremely embedded in heritage, or what I believe it is heritage and culture. So this is the building where we work every day at the Center for Contemporary Arts. It was actually created by an architect in 1875 called Alexander Greig Thompson. And as you can see from this picture and from the previous picture, there is a center there which is called the Third Eye Center. So before being called the CCA, we were called the Third Eye Center. The Third Eye Center was founded in 1975 by 72, by Tom McGrath, who was a writer. And he had his incredible progressive vision about a center that would be at the same time for the digital, for the community, for the media, for the arts, for music. People would go there, they would cook together, they would play Tai Chi together, they would learn how to use cameras, and they were exposed to a variety of formats for culture. But at that time, the Scottish Council, who was supporting this project, was quite happy to have this sort of grassroots phenomenon. People are entirely empowered. They can decide what to see inside the center. But in 1990, this place converted into the Center for Contemporary Arts. What was the change? Why? The real reason was that instead of just focusing on the locale, they wanted us to look internationally. This was already happening with the Third Eye Center, but they believed it was much better to focus more on the mainstream, to have much more international artists presented in the center, to have like a focus that would really look like we are looking outside Scotland, and we are then going also to disseminate Scottish results abroad. So like a hub for these contemporary works to then take place. As you can see, the Center for Contemporary Arts then gets also represented by artists locally. This is an icon that is now used for a hub. And it's quite interesting because it's an iconic place, it's an iconic building, but most of the time we know very little about it. So the Center for Contemporary Arts resisted till beginning of 2005, so as I said, converted in 1990. What happened was that they were awarded with a grant from the lottery. So all of a sudden the center could expand and get more space. But the reality is there was no more money. So many more rooms, many more offices, a theater, a cinema, bigger galleries, but no more money. So what do you do with that? What happened was that in 2006, in between 2005 and 2006, the center was about to close because of bankruptcy. The current director was invited in, called Francis McKee, and he created a new policy. We call it the open source. The idea is that the spaces have been repurposed for you. Anybody can program inside the Center for Contemporary Arts. 80% of the activities that we deliver are not curated by the curatorial team. Anybody can try to propose an event, either co-program with us or just do it autonomously. By doing that, it means that we represent what really the city wants to see. It's quite sustainable. We are not imagining that Sarah would like to come for a heavy metal concert, because I have no idea what is her music taste. But we are asking Sarah, please tell us if you would like to program some music events, or if you really have this passion, you can come in and we can support you in order to do that. So it means that the overall hardware, the building, is yours. It belongs to anybody in town and farther afield. Is also not just attracting people from the art sector, because I think that's a key point. We work with the Red Cross, we work with festivals that are about Buto dance, we work with people in the third sector that are concentrating on health and well-being, mental health, care. It means that during the year, you have a variety of events that are touching upon different sort of social issues, and have got also formats that are not strictly related with the visual context. So this is something that it's quite subversive. Is also done with very little sources. The main idea started because we had no sources, but it also means that it's really revealing the unmaking heritage that we have in town, because all the different cultures that are present in Glasgow are then verbalized or visualized or taking place in the building itself. So this is one way we can relate with heritage, both connecting with the building, repurposing the building, but also inviting people to share the culture they own, and therefore to try to articulate what is the heritage for the future. We also have an archive. The archive is a full collection of all the documents from the Third Eye Center until nowadays. Every day that we spend at the CCA, we keep archiving, deciding even if we want to archive an email or if there is a specific poster we would like to put inside the archive. So for us, it's an ongoing question. We are very, very lucky to still have this archive, because the archive was actually located in the Glasgow School of Art. And actually we were in danger of losing it during the first fire in 2014, because I don't know if everybody in the room knows, but unfortunately the Glasgow School of Art went on fire again this summer, so we were closed for over 4 months. The archive is really interesting. It tells us all the story of the development of the Third Eye Center. And I just picked one example to try to relate to the idea of the use of heritage through the archive and the repurposing of this heritage, the upcycling, with a document that I found talking about an exhibition that was curated by the neighbors together with the curatorial team in 1985, when the motorway was coming through the area of Garnet Hill, which is the neighborhood where the CCA is located, and they really wanted to try to defend the neighborhood and saying this neighborhood is precious and you shouldn't put the motorway just on the edge of the neighborhood, because in that way you are isolating us from the rest of the city. So they made an exhibition, and as part of the exhibition there was also this outcome, which is a recipe book called the International Cooking Pot. It's quite interesting. Through the recipe book you can learn lots of things. It was a very basic format. Each neighbor that wanted to take part of the recipe book would suggest a recipe from his own country and then write a sentence in his own language. In that way, we can discover also the demographic of the neighborhood. So there are recipes from France or from Italy or Poland. And also it's quite interesting because there are all nationalities, and then there are Jewish recipes, which I also find quite interesting. So I found this this recipe book, and I thought that it was relevant to reconnect it with the present. So I created a public engagement program called the Cooking Pot. I even used the title. The program is made of different sorts of formats. We do workshops, talks, screenings, lectures, all around the idea of food as a basically social connector in order to rediscover the multiculturalism of Glasgow. Here is just an example. This specific workshop was held in a bakery called Bakery 47 and was programmed by a group of adults with autism. And again, this is for us quite important. We generally don't speak about visitors, and we don't speak about participants. We speak about co-producers, we speak about contributors, we speak about co-programmers. So they were actually hosting the workshop. It was not for them. And probably this is not innovative here. I don't know, I'm not very familiar with the Czech contest, but within Scotland it happens quite rarely. So you have most of the time workshops that are strategically focused on one specific group, and therefore is rather pretty much about participation rather than co-production. Another example was just a celebration of the mooncakes nights with the Chinese community. I just used this as a way of trying to translate this idea of upcycling, the heritage upcycling, in this case, notions that were coming from the past, from the archive that we have at the CCA. But another way of connecting with our heritage could be by connected with the neighborhood. So this is the famous Gareth Hill I was mentioning before. The motorway now cuts this area all the way through there. There were very important buildings in this area, including the dental hospital, the synagogue, center for Chinese elder people. There was one of the first astronomic observatory of Glasgow. But the area has been entirely transformed thanks to the fact that the Glasgow School of Art is placed there and many other stakeholders like us, which means that residents are not entirely happy even about the existence of some of the local cultural institutions. But most importantly, you can see it from this picture, but just here, there's a big street called Socky Hall. And when I first arrived in 2015, they invited me to be part of a consultation. Now, you have to know that as an Italian, I've never been part of a consultation. I had no idea what was that about. So the idea was that we would meet the future architects in charge of the regeneration, and they would ask us what is that we would like to see in the street. So I was there and I was thinking, this is fabulous. Someone is asking the citizens what is that they want to have in the street. And then I went to many meetings, and after a couple of them, I noticed that the majority of the residents were highly disappointed, and they were telling me, this is just another way for the city council to tick the boxes that they have done the consultation, but they are going to do whatever they want to do. They really don't care about what we actually try to suggest. So I was actually thinking much better the Italian way, at least we don't lose our time trying to give an answer. We are not asked at all, but it's fine. Then this way, in which you kind of give an idea of democracy that then is actually not pursued. But I wanted to do something, and I proposed to the neighbors to re-engage with the concept of this sort of urban planning or community urban planning. So I created a project called Botanic Concrete, which was a civic laboratory for the reimagination of the area. We created tools together. We tested the tools together in order to learn from the neighborhood, to learn from the stories that we could accumulate from the various neighbors. Everybody was invited in through this postcard. I went door by door. As you have seen, the neighborhood is not very big, but I went door by door just talking with the neighbors, giving them a postcard, inviting them to join in. And then once we accomplished the project, what we did was to put everything online. You can still find it, botanicconcrete.com, with all the tools copyleft that anybody can use in different neighborhoods in order to feel re-empowered and learn more what is that you would like to see in your neighborhood next time that someone is coming for consultation. Another way of connecting with the heritage, Glasgow, between many things, is a very important university city. This is a picture showing the Exodus Day. I need to check the date. So the foundation of the university was 1451, and the Exodus Days was in 1891, when the university moved from High Street to Gilmore Hill campus. So as you can see, there is a vast demographic in that picture, lots of women, it's quite diverse, but I just used this in order to describe what was the heritage, how is that basically it is university culture is also really part in centuries of the city. So thinking of that and thinking how much culture gets produced into the university and how is that we can repurpose it and use it otherwise, I created another program with the help of different groups called Invisible Knowledge. So thinking about all the knowledge that we do host in Glasgow that is invisible, either because it's part of the academia and therefore never gets really translated for general public, or because it's owned by people that wouldn't have a chance to actually share their knowledge with general public. So the two groups are Invisible Knowledge Group, made of PhD students, freelance researchers, and some people coming from the art sector. So with them we have closed sessions in which we try to understand how we can translate this knowledge, what are the different formats in which everything that gets researched in the uni can then be part of a Center for Contemporary Arts, and also how all that accumulated knowledge or heritage can be shared otherwise. The other group is Glasgow Refugee Asylum Seeker Migration Network. So we work with a group of asylum claimants as well, that probably were working in sectors like theater or visual culture in their countries, but they are not allowed to operate in those fields anymore. They are not allowed to have a job in Scotland, nowhere in Europe. Therefore, together with the groups, we gather and we do some scoping workshops. We try to understand what are the topics they are most interested with, and then we translate those topics into accessible formats for public that otherwise wouldn't learn about the things that these two groups can share. So what I'm trying to say here, using the interesting topic of upcycling heritage, is that at the core of what the public engagement program does at the CCA is this concept of civic practice, meaning something that connects with the city, with the locale, that it permeates different sectors and goes outside the art sector and trying to work with lots of different organizations on a more horizontal way. By doing that, I believe that art can then express a form of citizenship. If we really believe that we can be responsible for all this, embrace all these values, and try to contribute for the so-called better world, or whatever that is, then it's something that we can do also inside the art, and it can certainly create a different perspective of what knowledge and heritage is for the past, for the present, and for the future. Thank you so much.
Amazing presentation. Thank you, Viviane. And I think we couldn't find a better illustration for what I was envisioning this morning in terms of how an institution could engage in terms of active participation people. So really, really interesting and inspiring. So it's plenty of things on the table now. And I would really now to invite the floor to make questions or comments of what you have heard this afternoon. Anyone willing to break the ice?
Pavla Petrova, Arts and Theatre Institute. I have one question to Thomas about Topotek. I quickly checked the website and I found that there is just two Czech villages and one Prague district. I wanted to ask, how do you engage new participants, new villages, places to be part?
We do not really have an active engagement policy. So we have the koho project, and there are 10 partners from 10 different countries, and each partner was motivated to get 5 villages in its country in order to establish a topotek there. And so far in the Czech Republic, 2 or 3 topoteks were established by that way, but we are open, of course, to open many more topoteks here, but we have no possibility to do huge advertising or something like that. For instance, in Hungary, we receive every week a new registration of a topotheek. So in the meanwhile, there are 15 topotheeks or something like that. Or in Lower Austria, we have about 150. And in our experience, it needs a little time so that people get to know it. And there's quite an interesting dynamics that we realized in Lower Austria, because if one village has a topotheek, so the neighbor village also wants to have one. And then the next neighbor village also wants to have one. And so it grows and grows and grows. And we hope that those 3 topotheeks in Czech Republic can be a nucleus for more topotheeks in Czech Republic, of course. So if any one of you is invited to open a topotheek, please just approach me or send me an email and we can talk about it.
Any more? Okay, so if there are not any more questions, I'll wrap up this session. Well, I think that what you've seen here is particularly revealing of the fact that there are many different dimensions in which these new approaches to heritage apply in a natural way. So starting from archive, superficially from a very traditional way of archiving, but in fact with insight and a very innovative one at the same time, with working with established institutions like an archaeological museum and working with the real engagement department of a contemporary art institution. So it's really everywhere. At this point, the only limitation is our capacity to envision how heritage can establish a new kind of dialogue with all different kinds of stakeholders, not simply from the cultural sphere, but more generally from the social and even economic sphere. So I personally learned a lot from this session, and I hope you did too. So thank you very much, and let's go forward with the program.